It's Friday, April 27th, 2018. Welcome to Raging Chicken's Out the Coop podcast. This is Kevin Mahoney, editor and founder of Raging Chicken Press. Each week, I talk to our Capitol muckraker-in-chief, Sean Kitchen, about the good, the bad, and the ugly in state and national politics. This week's show, Arizona teachers are the latest to walk off the job en masse to demand livable wages and full public school funding. On Thursday, more than 1,000 Arizona public schools were closed as the weeks-long Red for Ed protest turned into the latest statewide walkout. Arizona teachers were joined by their neighbors to the northeast as Colorado teachers also walked off the job for better pay and full funding of public schools. The Koch Brothers report comes out, and it shows how Koch's monies, the Kochs, how they're using their money to fund alt-right institutes. Koch Brothers gave $14 million in 2015 and 2016 to academics from the Ludwig von Mises Foundation. And we'll have lots more about that later in the show. Secretly taped audio reveals Democratic leadership pressuring progressives to leave race. That's the title of a new article published in the Intercept by Lee Thong yesterday about the Democratic primary for the Colorado 6th District. Levi Tillman, author and inventor and former official with the Obama administration's Energy Department, moved back home to Colorado to make a run against the Republican incumbent, only to find out that DCCC had already picked their preferred candidate. Get a little involvement from the national Democrats trying to pressure Tillman to drop out. Good thing he was recorded. Republicans in Congress now pursuing a technical strategy to dramatically roll back regulations ahead of the 2018 midterm elections. They're looking to defund the administrative state behind the scenes and under the cloak of darkness. They're looking at a novel use of the Congressional Review Act, which is a 1996 law giving Congress extensive power to invalidate rules established by federal agencies. Things are still crazy in Trump world. Trump loses it on Fox and Friends. Michael Cohen has a burner phone collection. Dr. Ronnie Candyman Jackson not going to be the next VA secretary. Scott Pruitt can't answer yes or no when he's grilled about his improprieties. The list goes on, but I'm just going to stop there, folks, because it's nuts. And the week started off, of course, with another sovereign citizen, a.k.a. white male sovereign citizen, killing 4 people in a Waffle House in Tennessee. Closer to home, in Pennsylvania, the Pennsylvania GOP sees staffers leave en masse and only have $16,000 in the bank for payroll. Meek Mill released from prison after spending 5 months in prison. Pennsylvania has the worst parole system in the country. Right-wing PA Republicans got what they paid for Wednesday as their Rand Corporation Commission studies recommends dramatic changes for posh universities. And let's be reminded that PA ranks 47th out of 50 states in per capita funding for public higher education. Wonder if there's a connection. And right down the street where I work, Kutztown University votes to implement a new campus support fee on students in the amount of $488 beginning next academic year. That will increase costs to students by a total of 4.1% for next year. Students attended the meeting, pleaded with Board of Trustees members not to implement this increase, but not having it. The Board of Trustees unanimously voted to increase the cost. And this past week, the latest episode, the new video released regarding the Colleen Bradley whistleblower case. In part 2 of the video series I'm working on, I interviewed Bradley's legal team, Daniel Kearney and Ed Mazurek, about the constitutional implications of her case. It's just getting nuts. It's getting nuts. And I also have something to say about the weird quietness around this case when it comes to higher education. And in today's last call, we don't have a whole lot of beer news this week, but there is a little soiree called the Swingo de Mayo that you might have seen in the pages of Raging Chicken Press. We'll get into that little racist soiree. And NASA lays the ground for a moon push. A moon push, folks. Whew. I want to remind everybody to tune into the Rick Smith Show on Free Speech TV this and every Saturday at 7 p.m. Eastern. You can stream the show live at freespeech.org. You can also tune in on the Dish Network, DirecTV, or through the Free Speech TV app on Roku. If you missed the show, no problem. You just go to freespeech.org. And you know what? Look at the show archives, because all this stuff is archived there now. It's fantastic. Or listen to Rick every day at thericksmithshow.com. I want to thank everybody who's taken the time this year and, since we started to become members of Raging Chicken Press. It's your membership that keeps us going. It's your membership that funds our writers. It's your membership that has made this little engine keep on going. And if you like what you hear and you've got it in you to support Pull No Punches Progressive Media, become a member of Raging Chicken Press for as little as $5 a month. Just go to patreon.com/rcpress and choose your membership level. If you're not ready to become a member, no problem. You can make a one-time donation by going to ragingchickenpress.org and click on the Support and Membership tab. Click Donate, and you'll be good to go. But the best thing you could do is just become a member. Patreon.com/rcpress, as little as $5 a month. So, Sean, man, new day, man. It's a new day, new week, same old, and, things happening that we never thought would ever happen.
Yeah, well, at least spring is here.
At least it is. There you go. All right. I like it. Look at you looking on the bright side.
It's rainy and dreary outside today, but you know what? Spring is here. It's beautiful out here in Harrisburg. Starting to break out the sandals, the flip-flops, and shorts and everything. So...
Oh, that's awesome. It's funny. Yesterday when I got home, my son was home from school, so I stayed home with him yesterday. He was sick. And it was just, I think it was actually just kind of the massive kind of temperature swings, right? He gets migraines. So he got sick, like he came home from school sick the night before and like all nauseous and everything like this. But so he kind of slept for a good chunk of the day and just hung out. But anyways, when I picked up my daughter, we're coming back from the bus and come up, and all the like blooms are going on all the trees that I've been planting over the past couple of years. We've got like magnolia blossoms and we got a red bud on the side. So it's like that moment, right, where everything's just starting to kind of come into bloom and finally feel like, okay, we're not joking this time. We're actually going to get some spring.
Yeah. Yeah, everything's in bloom. All the trees are popping and everything, so it's nice.
Yeah, it's got to be beautiful out there.
Yeah, I think Harrisburg's listed as like an arboretum for the state or like national arboretum. Mm-hmm. So there's a lot of trees everywhere right now. All the dogwoods and poplars are shooting off. So like all of like 2nd Street is full of dogwood trees, and you have like that. There's like white flowers on the trees. Yeah, it's actually pretty cool.
Yeah.
Cherry blossoms are getting ready to go now too. So.
There you go. Boom, pop.
Yep.
There you go. So, man, this week, I can't. It's been like almost consecutive weeks ever since we saw the West Virginia walkout, where teachers are just basically ramping it up. And to see that we've got Arizona teachers walking off the job. And I don't know if you saw the pictures yesterday, but it was unbelievable. Just it looked like thousands of teachers gathered in a baseball stadium in downtown Phoenix and kind of marched to the state capitol building. Kind of people who were kind of commenting on it, both reporters and citizens, says it's the largest gathering that they can ever remember. Largest protest they could ever remember in Phoenix. Man, and these teachers are just they're serious.
Yeah, it looks like tens of thousands of teachers showed up yesterday out in Arizona. I mean, what's happening? One of the things that's like keep on going back to, like, these are happening out in states that have no history of unionization, or like don't have like that don't have that union history that's rich out here. And Pennsylvania, West Virginia, Kentucky. We're seeing teachers starting to get up, and it's funny seeing where this movement's going, how fast and rapid it is growing and dispersing. Yeah. And the achievements that they're getting in these states, pushing the dial on public education funding. If in a way it feels like it's, I guess, a continuance of what happened with Wisconsin and everything, but it doesn't feel like it is too or like the momentum is going. Like, you know what I mean? Or it doesn't see as outward.
Yeah, I mean, it's what's remarkable to me is, it speaks to this whole notion that, what happens when you implement the shock doctrine year after year after year, where you implement austerity policies year after year after year. And at some point you think that there's going to be a tipping point. And I think when it comes to public schools, this has been it. In some ways, I think that the election of Donald Trump to the presidency kind of woke some people up, I think, a little bit about saying, like, okay, things are going to be okay and blah, blah, blah. And especially when it comes to the kind of defunding of public schools and the kind of rhetoric you hear coming out of Washington and around the states, you just kind of had enough. And you get to that some point where, it's like take it all I can stands and I can't stands no more. And then boom, eat your spinach and get out in the streets. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
It's nuts.
Yeah. And it seems like it's, this is the type of actions we're going to have to see post Janus. So.
Yes. Well, again, I think this is all the warm up, right? So what I think is also useful, what's happening as part of this, we're getting a national discourse about what the defunding of kind of our public sphere has actually meant, right? So, for example, the fact that you've got like the New York Times and a Washington Post reporting on national papers reporting on the specifics of the funding in Arizona schools. Like, so, for example, we know now, right, because Arizona spent $8,141 per pupil in 2017, which is well below the national average. And that's kind of according to the state's auditor general, right? So we're beginning to actually kind of look at what the actual salaries are. The average teacher's salary in Arizona was $48,372, right? Which is below the median income in the United States. Right. And so forget it when you kind of talk about questions of wealth. So, there's all this perception that, years the right wing has been hammering on public school teachers, hammering on both, K through 12 and higher ed, but especially K through 12. And, the thought of, they get their summers off. They make too much money. They don't care about their kids, all this kind of stuff. And that's just kind of being turned on its head. In a way that the right wing can't keep up. I thought it was interesting. There was, a piece by Michelle Goldberg in the New York Times in one of her columns there when she's writing about the walkout. And she points to the fact there's this guy, Jason Riley, who's a conservative writer for the Wall Street Journal. And Riley wrote that, quote, "It isn't just college campuses now that's, with all this activism. The nation's K through 12 schools are also turning into hotbeds of political activism." So you kind of see this right-wing trope that was, so far for the, the cushy college professors are going after them. Now these right-wing thinkers are now attempting to do that through K through 12. The only problem is that, now you're talking, for them at least, the problem is for them, the right wing, is that you're talking about teachers who, parents in the communities know these teachers. It's not like the college professor that, your kid goes to that's up there and you don't really get to see. You're talking about people in your very own community. So it doesn't work in the same way in my mind.
Yeah. And one of the things that we are starting to see, there's a lot of pushback with these teachers associations, with these teacher strikes. One of the organizations that sent a memo around is State Policy Network. They are a network of think tanks, that's Koch Brothers think tanks. I think there are like 60 of them, and institutes throughout this country. Right here in Pennsylvania, the Commonwealth Foundation is one of these organizations that are going after the teachers. And if you look through their Twitter feed over the past couple of days, they have been putting out reports saying that Pennsylvania leads the country in teacher strikes over the past 20 years. Pennsylvania is the leader in the amount of strikes, days teachers have been on strikes. And there are dozens of municipal contracts, or not municipal, but school district contracts that are coming up this year that could lead to potentially a strikes of 8,000 teachers. They are definitely fear-mongering their way through this, and basically attacking whatchamacallit. They are trying to, they are using the talking points that has been given out by the Koch Brothers, and they are putting it out into their publications, which is watchdog.org. But they're also able to get they're getting their information out in the news, in local newspapers in Pottstown, in Scranton, and other places. So it's just something else to look out for.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that, we're going to see more of this as we're moving forward. It's interesting because on the one hand, I don't know if you saw this reporting this week, but the Koch brothers have been kind of reassessing some of their support for congressional candidates moving forward for the 2018 midterms, in part because they're unhappy that there hasn't been enough dramatic kind of deregulation and stuff that's gone on, which is remarkable to me, especially after the tax bill and the kind of like the slow defunding of the administrative state. But that doesn't mean that they haven't kind of been active absolutely everywhere. So, you've been kind of digging into this this report this week on the kind of the Koch brothers and how they've been actually kind of funding a lot of this kind of like reactionary work on college campuses.
Yes. So there's this group called Turning Point USA. Mm-hmm. I don't know if you heard of them. Have you?
They seem to ring a bell. Don't they play with boats and stuff? Isn't that what they?
No, yeah, they are part. They could be the part of the local yacht club.
Yeah, right, exactly.
But no. So
they're the ones who we talked about this a couple of weeks ago. They just had that little kind of gathering up at IUP a couple of weeks back.
Yes, and they also spoke at the Commonwealth Foundation's Crazy Fest Pennsylvania Leadership Conference a couple weeks ago. They were at IUP a couple weeks ago. Charlie Kirk was. And basically, it's a right-wing group going after college professors, going after student council elections or college elections, and trying to influence the college atmosphere through that way by intimidating liberal professors into silence, which we have seen them do with a few professors at IUP, Bloomsburg, and a couple of other Paschy campuses. And then we have also, so they have chapters popping up here. And I came across a story on my timeline about one of their professors who rang a bell. His name is Marshall DeRosa. He teaches down at Florida Atlantic University. DeRosa is a whatchamacallit. DeRosa is a professor down at Florida Atlantic University. He's part of a Koch brother group, and he's also he was also an advisor to a Turning Point USA chapter down at Florida Atlantic University. And DeRosa also has a lot of ties to the South. To the South, yes, but also a lot of ties to the alt-right and white nationalist groups, right? And a couple of these groups that he has ties to are the Mies Foundation, Ludwig von Mies Foundation, and then the League of the South. And then, I did some research on the Mencken Club, and he's also spoken at Richard Spencer's H.L. Mencken Club conference back in 2008. And so the point, this is just one person of the story. The point of this report that was published by Uncoke, My Campus, talks about the support these professors have been getting from these Koch institutes on their college campus.
Right. The name of that report is Advancing White Supremacy Through Academic Strategy. And we will have a link of that in the show notes. And people really should read this thing.
Yes, I just came across this yesterday, so I have not had a time to really go through it. There is a very in-depth report. I recommend people reading it. One of the things I did come across in between 2015 and 2016, sorry, I'm just through 2015, 2016, the Koch brothers have given $15 million, almost $15 million to people who wrote at the Ludwig von Mies Foundation. And they have pretty much are all associated. Most of their professors have some association, or there's a working connection between the von Mies Foundation and the League of the South, which Marshall DeRosa was a part of, or still is a part of. There's also a lot of other connections between Koch brother money The von Mises Foundations are an Austrian economics group, and other Austrian economic institutions. One of them is the Mercatus Institute. Pretty much a lot of these like think tanks that you see around here, with the Commonwealth Foundation, like organizations that influence the Commonwealth Foundation, they, I forget what I was going to say. Lost my train of thought.
Well, it's interesting. This guy is also,
but also, the Austrian economics, they play in that libertarian, anarcho-capitalist, libertarian to alt-right pipeline. And this is just another connection that shows that.
Yeah, and what you find in this is that, you find in this report,
there's just so much to unfold in this report.
No, right. Exactly. I mean, the layers, like even if you start with just even like, okay, Marshall DeRosa, right? Not only is he connected to this League of the South, not only is he getting Koch Brothers money, right? He's also getting funding from the private prison industries, right? But there's the Geo Group, right? And has affiliations and kind of networks with all the kind of key neo-Confederate kind of white supremacist alt-right think tanks across the country.
Charles Murray, AEI, American Enterprise Institute's another one.
Exactly. And
Charles Murray's also spoken at the H.L. Mencken Club, which is part of Richard Spencer's yearly conference of white nationalist academics throughout the country.
Now, what's this goes right to the point you're saying. There's so much to unpack in this, is because why this report is so important is because you get to see the network, right, that supports these kind of scholars. Now, we've talked about this as long as Raging Chicken has been around, as long as we've been doing this podcast. We've been talking about the way that the right has systematically kind of supported an institutionalization of of its ideology through support for intellectuals, support for scholars, support for research, and so on. In this report, we see that this is not something that just happened like 20 years ago, 30 years ago. This is ongoing, right? And we're seeing that we've got scholars. Like, you wonder how these people get to put out all this stuff, how they get certain kinds of legitimacy. It's precisely because they've got an entire network, right? A self-referential network and financial support mechanisms, right? To keep these people in place, right? So you actually have, we've talked about this before, about how the Koch brothers have virtually bought out different academic departments. Like we see at George Mason University, at Florida State University, the economics department there. We see at University of Virginia. But here you see that it's not simply just that one-to-one correspondence where the Koch brothers go in and kind of like buy out a department at a university. It's the fact that you've got these multiple kind of streams of funding to support these kinds of scholars. And frankly, most academics, I would say, have no idea who these people even are.
Yeah. Only if you keep up with this. I mean, like this report's massive. So it's going to be fun reading over this. I'm pretty sure there's going to be a lot of connections here to Pennsylvania. One of the groups that I already saw, a couple of them, is the watchdog.org, which is what the Commonwealth Foundation has been using as their catalyst to get their media outlet. And then also the Franklin Institute, which is the right-wing organization, libertarian economic group that has funded the media infrastructure here in Pennsylvania.
That's exactly, this is the kind of stuff that I think is so important. And at the same time, it's daunting. I have to say, Sean, I mean, it's like you start to see kind of what exactly we're up against. It's like, as much as I can't stand having to kind of come and like ask people to become members of Raging Chicken Press every single week, sometimes it feels like these little tiny drops in a bucket, kind of right next to the waterfall of like, infinite supply of money that is happening here on the right. It's like that's kind of uphill battle that we're up against, especially when you see, the kind of funding of media infrastructure, the funding of kind of academic programs, the funding of, intellectual research. And a lot of the stuff is just absolute bunk, but they got the money to circulate their nonsense, and to really take control, over the narrative and hence over our politics.
Yeah. This is,
Yeah. Well, and the last thing I'll say about that is, like, the thing is that I've seen this, I've seen this discourse, right, that these people are kind of shopping, right? This kind of, quote unquote academic alt-rightism, if you want to call it that. The stuff that has been funded by the Koch networks is kind of like, radical libertarianism that is really more about kind of defending the rights of the people at the very top to accumulate as much as they want and do whatever the hell they want to the rest of us. You see that same kind of language kind of slowly creeping into the college classroom. Excuse me, over the past couple of years. Over the past, really 10 years. And so it has tangible effects because it's not something that just happens with faculty members, but it's kind of, it trickles down, so to speak, into kind of, kind of what students are kind of coming in with, what kind of language they're exposed to. And most of the time, nobody, faculty and students alike, have no idea where that kind of originates. And what this report does is kind of show us right, exactly how it happens.
Yeah.
Crazy. So definitely check that out. Look for the link in the show notes. I had to point this out. This came out yesterday. Lee Fong's piece in the Intercept, focusing on what's going on in the Colorado 6th district race, particularly in the kind of Democratic primary race there. So basically, you've got this guy, the Republican incumbent, Mike Coffman. He's running for re-election. And in the wake of like the Trump election, you see a lot of interest. Again, this is not kind of specific to Colorado, but a lot of interest across the country of people getting involved in elections, right? We've seen like historic numbers when it comes to people running for elections. So there's this guy, his name is Levi Tillemann. He's an author, he's an inventor. He was a former official with the Obama administration's energy department. After the Trump election, he decided to move back to Colorado and begin kind of to make a run against the Republican incumbent, Mike Coffman, right? So as he starts his campaign, he gets going, and he just kind of suspects that there's something that's not right, because there's this other guy in the race. His name is Jason Crow, who is a corporate lawyer. He's an Army vet. And he seems to be getting a lot of support from the DCCC, from the Democratic Congressional Campaign Committee, right? And it's one of those kinds of things. Are you being paranoid, or is something actually happening, right? So basically, he starts tracking down and realizes that the DCCC added this other guy, Jason Crow, to their kind of red to blue list, which is their list of saying we want to turn these districts from Republican into Democrat nationwide. And Tillemann's basically saying there's something that's not right about this, because the DCCC, who's picking their candidates way before voters ever get a chance to even kind of get involved and learn about the candidates, right? So the idea is they've got their thumb on the scale for particular candidates. Well, now Tillemann actually has evidence that this is exactly what's going on. So the House Minority Whip, Steny Hoyer, is basically been out there kind of campaigning. He's been, he's campaigned for these races around the country lots of times before. This is not new to him. But he's a heavyweight within a Democratic Party, especially with the DCCC. So he basically heads out to Colorado and meets up with Tillemann in this like hotel, like I think it was at the Hilton or something like this. Meets up in the Hilton and basically tries to pressure Tillemann to drop out of the race, and says everything that you need to say. Like he said, everything that kind of Tillemann suspects. He said, "Yep, a decision was made a long time ago that we're going to go with this guy, Jason Crow, way before the race ever starts, and we're going to get behind it. That's just the way it is, right? That's the way life runs." Well, the one thing, we've heard this before. This is echoes of the Bernie Sanders campaign, of course. But what was different here is that Tillemann recorded the conversation. So Lee Fong did. I mean, the article is excellent and kind of documenting what's going on. But then there's also a video connected to it, and you have direct links to the audio, which the Intercept released with some kind of redactions, because Tillemann said, look, he doesn't want people's names, all these other people's names associated with stuff, because he thought it was wrong. But at least at the very least, wants to make sure that Steny Hoyer is identified in that. And so the recording is released. So this is causing some ripples through through kind of the Democratic Party supporters, or Democratic Party members, kind of pointing once again to what's going on with the DCCC, because it's not just that they're picking the candidates, but they're picking candidates that are decidedly not the progressive candidates, right? They're the ones that are much more middle to the road, the kind of corporate Democrats that we're much more used to.
Yeah, and it's, who was Abramoff who got arrested back in the Bush years? This conversation always comes up. You want to buy that congressional seat once. You don't want to try to buy it more than one time. It's pretty much like the Abramoff way of things.
There you go.
I guess DCCC wants to buy that seat once and don't have to worry about it for the next 10 or 20 years.
Yeah. And, I guess the reason why I want to highlight this in some ways is that I don't know if you saw, because I posted this, I just kind of shared it on Facebook and Twitter, and there's been a pretty vigorous conversation that's been going on in the comment section of that. And we're going to see more of this as we get closer to 2018, right? This whole narrative about, the Democratic parties are just, you don't need the Republicans because the Democrats are going to destroy themselves, right? That's kind of the narrative that's already coming out. Like, so the idea that we shouldn't be attacking the DCCC, right? Blah, 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 right? Or it should be done in a kind of like a more civilized manner, or something like this, because the video that's associated with this Intercept piece is very clearly, paints Steny Hoyer. It was all animated, but
as a piece of shit that he always is.
Well, there you go. But
as always was
as the fat cat, with the cigar smoking, kind of like backroom kind of top player, which is exactly who he is. But to have that kind of brought out into public discourse. Speak the truth. Well, yeah, that's making people in the Democratic Party a little bit nervous. But again, it's like, we got to contend with this, because what's happening right now is there's a question about how we move forward and how we kind of allow this struggle within the Democratic Party to play itself out. What's going to happen if we continue to have these kind of moves by people like Steny Hoyer and the DCCC that are putting the thumb on the scales at the primary level, right? There will be a kind of a split within a Democratic Party, right? A historic split. We saw what happened during the last election, and the fact that this continues, right? Because the primary for Colorado is taking place in June. Right. So the fact that this is continuing, right, as a process, we got to be cautious. And, we talked about this after the Connor Lamb race, right, that, the Democratic Party starts looking at Connor Lamb and like, that's our model, right? He is our specific model for the candidates that we want to run. So they go out and they start look for people that fit the Connor Lamb mold, right? The problem with that, of course, is that not every district is the same as the one that Connor Lamb won in, right? That district was decidedly more conservative district, right? That seemed to be like a good sell for Connor Lamb, and you didn't have a strong progressive grassroots campaign taking place. That's not the case in Colorado and some of the races around the country. And we saw this play out kind of early on with the Edwards campaign, right, up in the PA 7th, right, where he reportedly was pressured to kind of like maybe get out of the race. It's crazy. Yeah. So I don't know, man. I don't know. We're going to see how this plays itself out. In the meantime, is that, this is like the grassroots is going to have their say one way or another. And if the Democratic Party is interested in its long-term like survival, right, then we better start building on the ground, right? Not consolidate power around your kind of corporate hacks like has been going on. So I don't know, man. The other thing I want to mention, this is Sean, did you see this whole thing about this new strategy that the Republicans in Congress are trying to move forward by using the Congressional Review Act?
No, I have not.
It's something, and I'll admit it right off the bat, is that I'm wrapping my head around this myself. But basically, here's the short version of it. because Republicans, right, pretty much are basically, they pretty much know that they are going to get routed, right, when it comes to 2018, right? At least that's their expectations at this point. So what they want to do is they want to find ways to make permanent, significant changes in the way our government works before the midterm elections. All right. So they know it by proposing legislation, right? They got their tax bill, right? Trump has been able to do a bunch of stuff in terms of executive orders. Scott Pruitt is doing whatever he can in order to kind of like defang the EPA, right? So there's all this kind of like, you know, again, we talked about this a while ago with Steve Bannon, right? The idea about defunding the administrative state is because the language that you get from the right. So, they know that the clock is ticking and they're running out of time to do stuff. So they came across this act, and they're going to use, they're planning at least. So this is kind of reported on in Vox. They're reported to use this Congressional Review Act, which basically gives Congress, and I'm quoting from Vox here, quote, gives Congress extensive power to invalidate rules established by federal agencies, and in doing so, making it more difficult for any future administration to resurrect the policies that lawmakers have struck down. So basically what happens is they review it, and the way that act is written, right, is that if they say, no, we're going to get rid of it, we're going to get rid of this thing, Congress is lawmakers are going to say no to this, then the law says, the Congressional Review Act says that future administrations cannot reinstitute laws or regulations or policies that are significantly similar to those that have been struck down, right? So in other words, it helps make this stuff permanent, right? Now, this comes out of the kind of Newt Gingrich era kind of first attempts to kind of gut the federal government, right? So this is kind of key. And the other part of this that's really important, it has to pass both houses, right? But it only has to pass a majority vote. So therefore is not subjected to the filibuster in the Senate. Right. So this is kind of like something that we're going to have to be paying attention to because apparently, and you guess who's out in front on this one, Sean?
Who?
Pat Toomey.
Not
right?
Surprised there.
No. Pennsylvania owns Pat Toomey as one of the people that is actively looking at ways to use this Congressional Review Act, to kind of further gut our public protections and kind of regulations designed in many cases to help us. Because the ones that they're going after are regulations on the environment, on regulations about kind of corporate earnings, anything that would fit the extremist agenda of the right wing in this country. So check it out, folks. The link, once again, the show notes today about the Congressional Review Act. I'll put a link to the Vox article. It's one of these things that is happening behind the scenes that because of the craziness in Washington and the craziness kind of in the mainstream media, that we're not necessarily seeing the coverage that is due for these moves that are taking place that are going to have like historic long-term effects on the quality of our lives and kind of what happens down the road. So look it out. I don't even, Sean, I don't even know. I mean, pick your Trump craziness to wrap us up here. I mean, my Trump craziness for the week, he was appearing on Fox and Friends yesterday. And the guy literally, I mean, you could tell he hit a breaking point and he couldn't help himself. He had to pick up the phone and dial in right to his friends at Fox and Friends, and just went on this screed, this rant for
guys. I just want to let you know everything you were saying is absolutely wrong.
It was nuts. He was freaking out. He was like reiterating these conspiracy theories. He was relitigating the kind of conspiracy theories about Hillary Clinton's involvements and all this kind of stuff that got him through the whole campaign. That has kind of the sea of insanity that he's swimming in, and it got to the point where he basically said. He basically undercut his major legal defense, which basically they're trying to say, look, all that stuff you sees from Michael Cohen, his lawyer, all the stuff you see from, not that big of a deal because we've only had a tiny percentage of our dealings with him, right? So up until then, this was reported on Maddow last night. Up until then, the Trump lawyers have been arguing that, look, this is stuff that's subjected to attorney-client privilege, right? So, and because of
he
that,
said in the public sphere, it is now public knowledge, and we're now subject to be to a court filing for it to be made public.
Well, yes, because 2 hours after he said this, right, there was a new court filing that comes and said, so this is why that you should not worry about this attorney-client privilege stuff, because the president
he's going around in public.
Yeah, said that it's only a tiny, tiny, tiny percentage, so we don't have to worry so much about it. Plus, Michael Cohen's only got 3 clients, right? One of whom has said not really a client, right? This is Sean Hannity said never paid the guy. Another one who was just trying to pay off a woman who he got pregnant, right? And he didn't want to get out in public. So all the rest is Trump, right?
Who was it? Was it Chapo Trap House this week, or was it Majority Report that was joking around about Sean Hannity last week about the scene from Breaking Bad? It's like, all right, now if I give you $10, no one will ever know that you wanted to try to kill me because I'll be your lawyer.
There you go.
I feel like my favorite story of the week is Michael Cohen would be a really fucking horrible drug dealer. When police and the FBI agents raided his office and home and everything and hotel room, somehow they found over 12 burner phones. Now,
don't know how that happened.
And a couple of them are a BlackBerry and an iPad.
Don't know how that happened. Those aren't mine.
It's like hoarders. Maybe he keeps his old cell phones because he doesn't want to throw them away because of all the rare metals in there and the toxins that will get released into the landfill. I don't know. Maybe he's just trying to be a good environmentalist.
Yeah, or maybe it's all the data on those phones that he doesn't want anybody getting to. Yeah, that was a good one. I have to say my favorite of the week has to be the fact that that Dr. Ronnie Jackson, the White House doctor, is not going to be the next star. Not a porn star, not going to be the next VA secretary because one, he's drinking on the job and handing out opioids like to anyone who wants them. But the best part about that whole thing is finding out that in interviews with the White House staff,
it's Candyman.
Yeah, it's Candyman. They called him Candyman because the dude is handing out kind of Ambien and kind of like opioids like at will. So they said, "Oh, here comes the Candyman." So
yeah, button boy.
Yeah. And I think and the CBC had a great article on this, and I have to say my favorite thing about that
is the best byline, best intro.
The best intro line was like, apparently the Candyman can't, right? So that's that week in Trump craziness. And, I think that unless we've got major developments, we're just going to do this kind of quick run through with the Trump stuff. And we're going to really, I think, try to start focusing more on the movements that are going on. I mean, not that we haven't been doing that up until now, but is a certain degree. I've been hitting a certain degree of exhaustion with just covering the intrigue in Trump. But we'll see. And before we go, I do want to kind of go back to kind of where the week started, where and again, it makes everything seems like a month ago. But the week started off with another one of these quote unquote sovereign citizens killing 4 people in a Waffle House in Tennessee. Once again, we get an AR-15 being trotted out.
Stopped by a black man.
Right. Stopped by a black man who tackled him and stripped the gun away from him and threw it behind a counter for chasing him out of the Waffle House. Yeah. Yeah. I mean, interviews with that guy was incredible. Like he said, he was like, you could tell how shook he was. And he said, look, I'm not a hero. I didn't think I had any other
fight
option.
Or flight.
Yeah, no, it's like he said he was like in this corner by this bathroom and there was no place to get out. And so when the gun jammed or the guy was reloading, right, he basically just responded like, okay, this is it. I'm going to be dead in about, 15 seconds, or I'm going to attempt to do this, right? Attempt to get the gun away. And he did. Right. And here you go. And there was also, as part of that story, is that law enforcement was well aware of this guy, and that he had said all sorts of crazy things. He had threatened people and stuff before. He had all these weapons. His father or father-in-law, I can't remember which one, or father-in-law, I can't remember. Basically took his guns away from him.
Court ordered.
Right. Yeah. And then, but then he left town. And so when he left, he gave him his guns back. right? So I don't know what to tell you, people, is that, for a guy, and, he went into the Waffle House and the descriptions were he had nothing on but a coat. So like no pants, right? So you got someone like this who has access to AR-15s, right? And has got their head filled with all this sovereign citizen nonsense that kind of the right wing has been trotting out for decades. This is what you get. So, kudos once again to all those folks, all those students from Parkland, Florida, for the Penridge 225, because they've just been doing kind of amazing work. And let me see if I can pull this up real quick. I wanted to give it a mention. Yes. So the Penridge 225 is, they were the 225 students who walked out of Penridge High School in Percy, Pennsylvania, and they were all given detention. The students then held a protest during the first week of detention that kind of went viral. It got national coverage. They were down in D.C., the March for Our Lives. They got to meet the Parkland, Florida students who are down there. And now, on May 3rd, students from across Pennsylvania are going to begin a march to Senator Pat Toomey's office in Philadelphia, right? They're going to be doing a 50-mile march led by the Penridge 225 down to Pat Toomey's office, demanding meaningful gun reform. So we're going to have a link to that press release. This is just kind of making its way. The walk is going to take place May 3rd through May 6th, right here down the street from me. I'll have an opportunity to talk to some of those students ahead of the march, and then ideally get to follow them down there. But it's got to be critical that we remember that these students, these kids, are not going away, that they didn't just have a one and done, get their day in the sun, and that was it. No, they continue to organize. And the fact that we're going to have a 50-mile march to Pat Toomey's office is amazing. So heads up on that, and we'll have some more video kind of moving on that. Good. Anything else before we take a break, Sean?
Nope.
All right. So everybody, after the break, we'll get into the Pennsylvania end of things. The joy, the joy, the joy. I want to remind you that if you can, become a member of Raging Chicken Press for as little as $5 a month. Simply go to patreon.com/rcpress. That's patreon.com/rcpress and choose your membership level. Patreon, by the way, is spelled Patreon, right? So patreon.com/rcpress. Become a member of as little as $5 a month. We need you. We've been stretching ourselves to the limit of late. And we need the kind of support. We need the support to keep this work going and keep it flourishing and bring more people to the table. All right, this is Kevin Mahoney, editor and founder of Raging Chicken Press. We'll be back right after this break.
I'm Rick Smith, and this is Labor History in 2. On this day in labor history, the year was 1978. That was the day a West Virginia cooling tower under construction collapsed, plunging 51 workers to their deaths. It was considered the worst non-mining disaster in West Virginia history. It's also the worst accident in the history of the country's construction industry. Cooling towers were under construction at the Pleasance Power Plant at Willow Island. Union building tradesmen built up the walls of the tower from scaffolding bolted to it. As each section was poured, the forms would be removed and the scaffolding raised and bolted to the new section. The tower had reached about 168 feet when the previous day's concrete walls began to peel away from the tower. The scaffolding plummeted, as did the workers. Many could only be identified by the contents of their wallet. The Steele family was beyond devastated with the loss of 10 family members. In a 2008 retrospective by Ken Ward Jr. of the Charleston Gazette reported, quote, "A mix of safety lapses combined to bring the tower crashing down. Concrete in the previous day's lift hadn't hardened enough to hold the scaffolding. Key bolts meant to attach the scaffolding to the tower were missing. An elaborate concrete hoisting system was modified without proper engineering review. Contractors were rushing to speed construction." Dr. Celeste Monfortin of the Milken Institute School of Public Health noted that the case highlights still relevant issues: inadequate OSHA penalties, no criminal sanctions, holding workers responsible for contractors' mistakes, ignoring of previous warning signs, and a disconnect between abstract calculations and real-world applications. Kent Ward Jr. noted in his retrospective that in 2008, there was still no state public employee OSHA program in West Virginia. For more information, go to laborhistoryin2.com, like us on Facebook, follow us on Twitter at laborhistoryin2.
Welcome back to Raging Chicken's Out the Coop podcast. It is the Pennsylvania segment, everybody, right here at home. And I hear a little Peter Tosh playing in the background in celebration. Legalize it. Sean, big news out of Philadelphia.
Yes. Meek Mill was released from prison earlier this week and went straight to the Sixers game to go watch Game 5 of the Philadelphia 76ers and have them and see them win it. I think once it was announced that Meek Mill was getting released from prison and the 76ers owner was picking him up, the Heat had no chance.
Man, I'll tell you, dude, like Twitter exploded too as well when he was released.
Yeah. I mean, Meek Mill has always had courtside tickets. He's always seen sitting there with the one Sixers owner that released him. And he's always seen sitting there with Kevin Hart. So I'm sure yes, it's nice being Meek Mill or not. Well, I mean, would he obviously like getting out of prison on shitty parole violations, going back to prison for frivolous stuff. It obviously it helps having people like Robert Kraft and having an owner of the Philadelphia 76ers and having Kenny, the mayor of Philadelphia, and having other powerful people lobby on your behalf. But, he brings up a point of police corruption and corruption within the justice system. And I mean, he got thrown in jail on a parole violation over a crime he committed when he was 18, 10 years ago.
Yep.
Or 12 years ago. So, I mean, I got into some back and forth with people. I mean, what sent him back to prison for 5 months was popping a wheelie on a dirt bike while recording a video, a non-violent traffic offense.
It's crazy.
Which is normally a summary offense for anyone else.
It's crazy. And I think that, and again, this is a perfect example. What's been interesting, a lot of the discussion around this is, his case has just kind of shown a light on how horrible the parole system is within Pennsylvania, how much people are subjected to, kind of arbitrary enforcement of their parole, kind of all sorts of parole violations. There was interesting, and why I kind of like bring up the Peter Tosh stuff and kind of initially is because there's been a lot of discussion, right? At least seeing this stuff happen on Twitter about, again, going back to kind of here's the experience of so many African-American men, especially, right? Where things like, say, minor infractions of something like, carrying around pot, for example, lead to a lifetime of engagement with law enforcement precisely because of the kinds of stuff that we see happening to Meek Mill.
Yes. And we have seen some changes happening. Philadelphia District Attorney Larry Krasner has been trying to use lower parole sentences, but this is a Pennsylvania issue. The state has one of the worst parole systems in the country. Is the highest rate of parolees out on the streets, and it's something that's it's an issue that needs to be addressed.
Absolutely. And here's what Larry Krasner said, kind of a prepared statement about this, because there's a probation reform bill pending in Harrisburg right now. Larry Krasner just said, okay, yeah, that's fine and all, but we need something to happen kind of more quickly. And so in a prepared statement, he said, quote, "For too long, Pennsylvania has been drunk on incarceration and supervision to feed the political ambitions of lawmakers and prosecutors," he said in a prepared statement released concurrently with the report. "Pennsylvania's prosecutors have caused an epidemic of over-incarceration. In Philadelphia, we are stepping up by imposing policies that turn away from excessive sentencing and excessive supervision. I ask my fellow prosecutors in Pennsylvania and elsewhere to join us." Again, elections have consequences, folks. Perfect example of this, what we see with Larry Krasner.
Yeah. No, and I believe, that, and then there's also the backlog. It usually takes, once people get put on parole from leaving prison, it usually used to take them 80 days to do that. 80 days to get cleared for parole to leave. That's 3 months. it's still in jail when you get cleared for parole. That backlog has been brought down to 21 days now, but it's something that the prison or the corrections secretary is working hard on reducing, and he's done a really good job at reducing that wait time from 80 some days down to 21. But he's, in his view, it's still not where it needs to be.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that, it's I love the way he put that. Pennsylvania has been drunk on incarceration and supervision to feed the political ambitions of lawmakers and prosecutors. And I think that really cuts to the core of part of the problem. So kind of good out, and congratulations to Meek Mill for getting out. Glad he was able to make the Sixers game, because the Sixers, that stuff has just been going nuts. So
yeah, I know. I mean, it was really controversial on the owners' end of it to put a helicopter into the game, which everyone thought was crazy. But to have him ring the bell, the knowing that he did it knowing that it would cause a stir.
Yeah.
Being a highly controversial figure that Meek Mill is, he didn't know it would cause a stir. But Josh Rubin, who is a minority owner in the Sixers, the majority owner said, no, he's part of our family and he can do that if he wants to do it. And Meek Mill is definitely a part of our family, since how we all have gotten to know him over the past few years. And it's like, their argument is, yes, he did this crime when he was 18 years old, but it's not the person who he is now, and he should not have been thrown in jail for something over a petty offense.
Right.
I mean, another parole violation that Meek Mill had was an assault charge in an airport that later got dropped. Charges against him got dropped.
Yep.
So
there you have it. You have it. So, so why we do have some pending legislation in Harrisburg, it seems like might take a little bit longer than normal, because there's been a certain kind of rats leaving the ship or something, Sean? What's happening?
Now, this has nothing to do with the state party inside the Capitol.
What's this?
This is the Pennsylvania GOP. This is the Republican Party outside of the Capitol. So this is like the party infrastructure.
Yeah.
It's not going to stop Scarnati and Terzai from pushing the shit they want to push.
See, I was hopeful.
Yeah, no.
I let my hope blind my.
No. This is not the House or Senate Republicans. This is the Republican Party. This is the building on State Street.
All right. So walk us through this. So we see a bunch of staffers. Then
a bunch of staffers within the state party have been leaving en masse over the past few weeks. I think like 6 or 7 of them have left within the past couple months. The party is down to $16,000 inside its bankroll. And they're seems like the rats are leaving the ship.
Yeah, exactly. That's what it seems like to me.
Unfortunately, I know someone who just took a job within the Republican Party, and kind of feeling bad for him right now.
Well, you can tell your friend that Raging Chicken Press will always be here to lend an ear. That's for sure.
Yeah, if they can't make payroll, we will.
We'll find a way, as long as you come with documents. That's all I want to see.
But it's also, there was no real cause to this story, but there's a lot of things you want to wonder. And one of the things you maybe have to wonder about is the party steadfastly tying themselves to Scott Wagner and Lou Barletta for the 2 statewide races.
Right.
Barletta has only raised $2 million this past year to Casey's $10 million. And
so let me see if I can do some math here. That's a lot of a difference.
Yes. And the Scott Wagner, Republicans don't like Scott Wagner, right? You have someone from central Pennsylvania who's batshit fucking crazy and a wannabe gangster, just trying to run the party and trying to become the governor of Pennsylvania. And, donors where the money is from don't seem to really like that, in my opinion, is what I'm guessing. Wagner's a lot different of a Republican than the money base that is located in Philadelphia, Bucks County, and Montgomery County. Those are the richest counties of the state. That's also where your power base of the Republican Party lies, your donor base. And they are 2 totally different types of animals.
Right.
So, and yeah, well,
yeah, I mean, this is interesting. I mean,
I guess you see why they're hawking the impeachment stuff so much, so they can try to fundraise some fucking money from people.
Well, yeah, just kind of interesting, right? Because I mean, again, it's all speculation at this point, right? You know, because we don't know for sure, but it's like I start turning things around in my head, kind of like, okay, is this representing basically a shift for, you know, we're seeing this race to be more and more as a surrogate for this kind of big money outside donor kind of drama narrative that's kind of going on with Koch brother money and kind of like the Trump supporting funding money, all this, and a kind of a minimizing of kind of statewide party infrastructures. Is that a consequence? I don't know. I mean, I just again just kind of gaming out some different scenarios here. Just it's wild. But I mean, I could totally see. I could imagine people like sitting there working there. I'm like, I got to get out of here, man. If I hope to have work in the future, I got to get out of here, right? It's like I'm not going to sit there and try to go out and raise more money for this party if what's going on.
I know. I mean, from like day one, the new person who's running the party, which is Val DeGiorgio, out of Chester County, he has been, he has been
less than competent.
Yeah. He's tied himself to Trump from the start.
Right.
And I mean, like, it was funny because Val DeGiorgio is someone you don't see in Harrisburg that often. I see him in Harrisburg like 3 days this week. And so it's like, oh, Val DeGiorgio's around. Must be some.
Must be free food.
Or he might be begging for food. Get the can.
Exactly. Like, oh, I heard you guys got a happy hour.
Anyone got anything going on, man?
Exactly. He's got his little jar going down office to office.
Ring the bell. Ting, ting, ting.
I stole this from the Salvation Army people last Christmas.
Yeah, we should totally get someone like dressed up as a Salvation Army officer outside of their thing. Bring out your dead.
Yeah, right. Some bug with a cart. Right. Yeah, that's exactly what I was just thinking. It's like you could basically take people leaving the Republican state like headquarters, right? Like with a big cart of like bodies in it. Like, bring out your dead. Bring out your dead. Oh God,
that'd be like a good video project, like a 30-second like.
Dude, man, I'm telling you, if I could do this full time, the possibilities are endless. First, I'd be a much happier person, right? Because the joy of resistance could be a full-time occupation, right? Wouldn't have to kind of like, you know, like wedge it in the kind of the middle of the night, right? When I normally have to do this stuff. But oh my God, it would just be. I mean, I think of like this. It drives me crazy sometimes, Sean, because I'm thinking the possibilities are so amazing.
Well, I mean, like a couple weeks ago, like people showed up to legislators' offices in the House Education Committee with little pond stones, buckets full of pond stones.
See, like that's awesome. Like that's awesome. I mean, the stuff like the stuff the March on Harrisburg has been doing, right? You know, the Where's Waldo stuff. I mean,
yeah.
That's awesome. I see that stuff, and man, it's like it reminds me. You know, I just read. You know,
I mean, there's a lot more going on in the Capitol. So like this week or last week, people from Indivisible were there. They read like they summarized Metcalf's words. You know, did you see the video I put up?
That was great. That was awesome. Yeah, we forgot to talk about this. Yeah, that was awesome.
So next week they're going to be going around the Capitol dressed up in Handmaid's Tales, visiting all the offices of legislators who voted for the abortion bill last week.
Good.
Especially the vulnerable Republicans, and tell them you're going to pay for this.
Yep. That's awesome. Especially since especially since the season 2 of Handmaid's Tale just started out again this week, so it's perfect timing.
Yeah,
because I haven't watched it yet. I've got it ready to watch. But from my understanding is I keep on like putting my hands over my ears when people are talking about it because they said it's something else. So I think that's going to charge people up even more.
And then on Monday, Daryl Metcalf is having his annual gun rally inside the Capitol. There's people from the NRA there and everything, so it's gonna be fucking stupid.
Oh my God! that's crazy. What's crazy?
I can't wait to see the signs.
It's just going to be, well, again, the activism is increasing. I'm reminded, like I was talking about a little about last week, is that I just read Cecile Richards' book, Make Trouble. And in part, she talks a lot about her mom and things like this in Texas and stuff, but she kind of quotes or paraphrases Molly Ivins, right? Have you ever read Molly Ivins' stuff?
No, I have not.
But she's like a great progressive writer from Texas, right? She's been around for like forever, or was around. She'd been around, and was, one of the few voices coming out of Texas was the kind of like clear left progressive like voice. And she was just like, take no prisoners. She was great. And she basically said, it's like, look, if you're going to do this kind of work, you don't always win. So you got to learn to have fun doing it. Right. And I'm like, that's it. Right. And I thought immediately when Cecile Richards was talking about that and making reference to it, of the stuff that March on Harrisburg is doing, the stuff that we see, like the Pond Stones, that's just brilliant. It makes my day. The stuff that students have been doing, and reminded of the stuff, when we were back on strike a couple years back, with the kind of seriousness of purpose, but also flavored with a bit of carnival. I mean, I think you've got to do that if we're going to be sustainable. So that's great to hear, man.
Yes.
Oh man. So on the other side of the ledger, we've got
it's time for me to go check out.
No, I'm not gonna. I don't want to spend too much time on this, but I do want to say, like, there's a couple things I want to say about this. Okay, so maybe you should check out. I don't know. No. Is that look?
Let me clear out that chest real quick.
Yeah, right. Exactly.
Tell us how you really feel.
No, I'm not going to do this.
Don't burn any bridges.
Well, no, I'm not going to burn bridges today. Today. So a few things. One. So if you recall it was last year sometime, there was this report that came out that was commissioned by PASHE, the State System of Higher Education, through the Chancellor's Office. This is when our former friend was sitting in their Chancellor's Office, Frank Brogan, who's no longer there. They commissioned this NENCHEMS report. NENCHEMS is just the name of the organization that conducted it. They do this stuff nationwide. And basically, Brogan and his cronies were hoping that this report was going to come back and basically allow him to do what most of us feel he was brought here to do, which is kind of like wreck the union, break up PASHE, like institute kind of like, the kind of, privatization policies that he's done elsewhere, that kind of stuff. But the NCHEMS report came back and did not argue for that. Matter of fact, actually said you've got to respect the collective bargaining agreements. There are some things that need to change, right? And there's disagreements between the union and PASHE about, what you should do and what you should not. Anyways, but it was a place to start discussion, right? There was a real issue there about the need for there to be kind of more conscious shared governance, right? To building kind of collaborative work, that kind of stuff. So Brogan did not like that. And shortly after the report came out, Brogan kind of left. And now he's like hanging out with Betsy DeVos, right? In the Trump administration. But so you've got that. So the right-wing legislators in the state were completely unhappy with PASHE doing this independent study. They wanted something that was going to be going to give them study. Yes, exactly, their own ammunition that they already knew what the results were going to be basically before they started. So who do? They go out and they commission these are the right-wing Republicans. They commissioned the Rand Corporation to talk about what they would respect. Now, the Rand Corporation, right? The name should ring a bell. Ayn Rand, right? Right. This is kind of like their two big things have been libertarianism, right, and kind of like military counter surveillance, right? That's kind of like what they've been doing for decades. So they come with a predisposition to kind of privatize the world, right? So sure enough, on Wednesday, the report comes back, and it comes back to recommendations that, basically saying, look, we should merge these universities. Right now, the PASHE has 14 universities. They said we should just merge them down and to kind of reduce the number between 5 and 8. So instead of 14, we'll go down to 5 or 8, right? Or we'll just make them all state-owned universities, like or kind of not state-owned. I'm sorry, not state-owned university, but make them into state-related universities like Penn State, Temple, Pitt, and so on. Because you should know, people who don't know from outside of Pennsylvania, or even in Pennsylvania for that matter, Penn State, Temple, and Pitt and Lincoln are all state-related. They're basically private universities that get subsidies to kind of lower student tuition for in-state students, right? And they do some stuff for Pennsylvania-related research and that kind of stuff, but they're state-related. They operate primarily as private institutions.
You're paying $30,000 a year to go there.
Exactly.
Living on campus.
Right. As opposed to $20,000 or $18,000 to live on campus, like what you do at the state-owned universities. Right. And we should say too as well, and that number used to be significantly less too as well. But because of historic and kind of long-term cutting of funds to higher education and so on. So anyways, this study comes out, and I guarantee you that it is going to make its way into the 2018 midterm elections. Scott Wagner has already said that, that do not expect your university to be there down the road because, not going to let the taxpayers fund the schools anymore. This is going to be bandied around as a political football leading into the 2018 midterms.
But you also have, for the first time ever, Democrats getting on board with free public higher education for college students.
Exactly. And
for the first time ever.
Yes, and this is going to be how it's going to play itself out. And this is what I think when this report comes out, you're going to have these people on the right that are going to dig in around this issue and kind of trying to demonize professors and faculty members, talk about kind of waste, all this kind of stuff about what's happening about the changing demographics. All this garbage is going to be used that they have in the Rand study. Meanwhile, you've got the PA Promise has it been introduced yet, Sean?
I'm not sure.
Yeah, I'd have to check on that because I know it's supposed to any day now if it hasn't already. Vincent Hughes was going to introduce this legislation calling for free public higher education at the state-owned universities, and made as we've talked about on this show, made it absolutely clear that he is going to fight tooth and nail for this. And so you've got ABSCUF, the faculty union from the Pasha universities, has also gotten behind this PA Promise for free college tuition. You've got the PA Student Power Network, who's also been out kind of getting involved with pushing for free college tuition through the PA Promise. And I would even say that they see that as a step forward toward full free tuition, because basically the PA Promise is based upon the kind of like the New York model, where they kind of have it's free college tuition for people whose families make under $125,000 or something along those lines. So it's not a universal free tuition. I think the PA Student Power Network wants 100% right across the board universal free college and tuition, saying this should be a right for everybody, right? So that's going to play itself out. And I think it's going to play itself out in really interesting ways. So as Wagner and some of these other people dig in and try to use this report as a way to kind of attack Pashi, you're going to have these countervailing forces coming out from, yes, exactly as you said, Sean, for the first time, members of the PA Democratic Party actually getting behind free college tuition. And with someone like Vincent Hughes out in front, who is a champion of public higher education, basically kind of, singing the praises of PA PA Promise, it's going to be incredible. So definitely watch how this stuff plays itself out. Right now, we should say, this study. What's interesting about the study, and I haven't read the entire thing at this point, but what's interesting what I have read so far, look, it just came out, is that it doesn't deal at all with the fact that, Pennsylvania currently ranks 47th out of 50 states in per capita funding for public higher education. It doesn't look at all at the kind of significant budget cuts that have taken place in the state system, right, over the course of, 30, 40 years. So kind of heads up on that one. Now, one of the things that has been interesting about this is that there's been a narrative that's kind of played itself out that we've talked about a lot here in terms of the kinds of things that Raging Chicken covers. there are some folks who basically think that we should just kind of blow off this study from the Rand Corporation, right? Say, it's just a bunch of political noise. Don't worry about it, right? And I think that's a mistake, right? I think it's a mistake for the same reason we talk about the need to follow the kind of legislation that's being proposed in Harrisburg, that's coming out from the kind of fringe elements, right? I don't think that there's a strong chance, right, that these recommendations are going to be implemented. However, it gives us a clear picture of what the agenda is, right? And I think that we should be tying those state legislators that get behind this right to this report and right to the defunding of higher education. We need to kind of make a clear line of those folks who are for expanding access to public higher education, for free college tuition, and those folks who want to destroy it. Right. And I think this is the best tool that we have on the left to tie the extremists right in this state to a program of defunding access to public higher education in Pennsylvania. My 2 cents. So that's what I have to say about it, Sean.
So what was that?
Yeah, right, exactly. Well, on the other side of it, so here, this happened just yesterday at Kutztown University, and again, so I'll have an article up probably later today for Raging Chicken Press about this. But there was a board of trustees meeting at Kutztown University yesterday. I could not go. I wanted to go, but like I said at the beginning, I was home with my sick kid. Students went to this board of trustees meeting because the board of trustees was being asked to consider a proposal from the administration to institute what they're calling a campus support fee, which is an interesting title by itself, because when it originally came out, it was called a student success fee, right? And then people started asking them questions like, what is this going to be used for? And they were like, for student success. But what kind of policies, what kind of programs, how, what's going to be done? No answer, right? And then you say, okay, well, then how are you going to measure student success? And they're like, squirrel, right? It's kind of like, nope, no answer there, right? So again, it became pretty clear that the student success fee was totally about branding, right? It had nothing to do with actually tying it directly to students. And it turns out that Kutztown was not the first one to institute these. You actually have, I think it's at Bloomsburg University and a few other universities already have their student success fee, right? They missed the boat on calling these people out and saying, what the hell are you actually talking about? Proposing this for what, right? So they had to change the name, and now it's a campus support fee, right? Which basically means we're going to take your money and we're going to put it in our bank account to support us, right? That's really what it's all about. They're using it, and they said this explicitly in the board of trustees meeting. We had a student who sent me pictures and slides. I kind of recounted the meeting, and basically we're explicitly going to use this to reduce the deficit. That's what this fee is for. Right. I swear to God. Right. And so it amounts to about a $488 increase, right, or fee for the next academic year. Right. Which basically means that the aggregate of, what that means for students is that overall there's going to be a 4.1% increase in tuition, right? Increase in tuition and fees for the fall 2018 semester. Students that are kind of coming in there at Kutztown. Right. So, and this is the kind of stuff that the PA Student Power Network have been pointing out. This is the kind of stuff that I've been reporting on, God, as long as Raging Chicken's been around, right? This is how that these universities are kind of like are like compiling money, bringing money in on the backs of students and on faculty, right? So that's a good, check it out. So look for that coming up. There was again, some of the, I'll put some of the slides up there too as well. You can see exactly what they're talking about. They're overtly saying that, look, we've got these positions, right? These faculty retired. We've got these positions. Now there's nobody teaching those classes and all this. We're just not going to replace those positions. We're going to eliminate those positions. That's how we're going to save money, right? So what does that mean? That means faculty, you do more, right? That means you work harder, you fill in the gaps, you do overloads and so on. And students, yeah, we know that you got kind of probably the second highest rate of kind of student debt in the country. We're just going to add a little bit more on that. I mean, come on, what's another $500, right? I mean, come on, right? I mean, it's only $2,000 over the course of 4 years. And I know that most of you don't graduate until for 6 years. So $3,000 over the course of that years, but whatever, right? It's water under the bridge at this point, right? If you're talking about already having about 30 grand in debt, what the hell's another $4,000, $3,000? Come on.
Just an extra couple months of payments.
Join the party. Come on, what's the problem? Right? Help the economy, right? So there's that. So
it amazes me how, like, with how educators and professors and students have been treating the state over the past decade, that we have not had our own Red for Ed walkout yet in Pennsylvania.
Yeah, right. It baffles my mind, Sean. It baffles my mind. And so that's actually a good lead into, again, the Colleen Bradley case, because I just want to basically tell everybody, yes, the new video is released, right? That's out there. It's an interview with her lawyers. If you've read the piece that I did about the legal background of the case, you're going to see the lawyers are going to be talking that through a little bit more. Right. So I'll just kind of plug that out there too as well. There'll be a link in the show notes. But the bigger question goes back to what you were just talking about, Sean, is that why have we had this Red for Ed kind of movement here in higher education in the state? You know this all too well, as I've forced you to listen to me talk about PASHE budgets for way too long. But this is one thing that really concerns me. Okay, is that we have evidence from the Colleen Bradley case, from the Buncis report that we ran at Kutztown University, from previous reportings when Tom Corbett came in and was proposing a 50% cut for PASHE. The Board of Governors of PASHE basically forced all the universities to show what they actually had in terms of what's the real money, not the fake budgets that they're putting out there, but the real stuff on hand. And we saw that universities were accumulating money to do with it what they will, at the same time that they were kind of gutting programs, firing staff, eliminating faculty members, and increasing fees and tuition on students, right? So all that was going on. So I have this great concern. My concern is the fact that nobody seems to really want to highlight what's happening in terms of what the kind of budgetary schemes have been happening in PASHE. And I'll tell you why, is because they're worried that if you expose, like the Colleen Bradley case does, if you expose the fact that university administrators and PASHE administrators, right, are basically, right, creating a public budget that shows that they have deficits, or at least they break even, right? That they need money, that they're in crisis, so they have to cut more, right? While at the same time, that's internally they know that that's not the case, right? They're often sitting on kind of several millions of dollars of surplus, not just reserves, as I like to say, but of surplus, right? Nobody wants to touch that because they're worried, right? Especially kind of higher education advocates for public higher education don't want to touch it because they think that if this gets out, we pay too much attention to it. Right-wing folks, the very people that kind of commissioned this RAND Corporation study, right, are going to use it as ammunition to say that, look, the universities are flush with funds, so therefore we need to cut their funds because they're lying about it, right? And I understand the concern, right? I understand that concern that could be a result, right? That, in other words, Republicans and right-wing folks that want to gut public higher education could use that as part of an arsenal to try to attack public higher education. I get that. But here's the part of the story that they miss, right? By not going public about this stuff and not getting out in front of this, by not demanding that Eugene De Pasquale, the Auditor General, comes in and examines these books at every single university and talk about the decisions that have been made, right? What it misses is the fact that, yes, it might be true that PASHE is like underfunded, as we talked about earlier, 47th out of 50 states in the country in per capita public higher education funding, right? The system is not flush with funds, but how that happened, what's happening here is the administrations are consolidating their power and control to make decisions that they think are important. For example, for hiring outside consultants to tell them what kind of buildings to build, to upgrading and making new fancy buildings, right? To bringing in outside vendors, right? To kind of like, make it seem more like a mall, for having kind of landscaping projects that kind of make the campus more beautiful to attract more students, right? And how do they do that? They want the ability to do those things, but they do it by raising fees and tuition on students, number one, by eliminating faculty members, eliminating programs, eliminating those aspects of higher education that they deem, right? They, administrators, deem as non-productive, right? Things like the humanities, things like the arts, things like education programs, right? They're eliminating those things using the same logic that they're telling the state when they're seeking more appropriations. So on the campuses, right, the assault on faculty members, on programs, on the integrity of public higher education is felt every single day. Right? Our workload has increased exponentially. And I give you an example. A faculty member told me this yesterday, is that Middle States came to Kutztown University, right, and dinged the university again because they did not do the assessment stuff right. Now, we've been running assessment like crazy, right, for no additional compensation, no release time, no training. We've had to learn it all on our own. And I can't tell you, the majority of our department meetings and our curricular meetings now are taken up with assessment. Right? As opposed to talking about how to build programs that are kind of the best suited to kind of engage our students. No, we have to do this crap for Middle States. Right? And so it turns out we give them all these reports and we know that our administration doesn't even read the reports we come up with. Right? We've had them question us. We give them these like pages and pages of reports and they question us about things that are on the page 1 of the report. And we're like, you have to point them to that. It's right there on page 1. It's right there on page 1. It's in the executive summary, right? They make us, we are burning so much of our time simply by responding to administrative dictates, right? Because they think they need this. So anyways, they come back in, Middle States dings us again. We find out why. There's this thing called TrackDat, which basically tracks all this like assessment data, right? It turns out the administration never shared that data with Middle States. So we've been spinning our wheels on assessment stuff for Middle States. The administration tells us it all has to go in this one place. And then they drop the freaking ball, don't give it to Middle States. And now Middle States dings the university again. So we have to do more, kind of demonstrate even more stuff. And guess what their solution is? Their solution is to start up and propose a new layer of administration devoted to assessment. Not provide research or not provide release time or training or support for faculty members who have to do it. No, by hiring more highly paid administrators to do that. And guess what happens? Guess where that money comes from? It comes from your campus support fee, students. It comes from the loss of your program. It comes from the faculty member that just retired and will never be replaced. That's where it is. So that's the story that's got to be told. That's the story that's got to be told, right? And until we get past the fear of worrying that, oh my God, the Republicans might use this as a way to try to gut funding and take control of the narrative and demand that the money goes to where it needs to be, get rid of these freaking fat cats that are sitting at the top of there and getting paid like nobody's business, right? And bring it back to what we saw when Abscoff was on the line in the strike, when students were out there too as well, and say, this is our campus. It belongs to faculty and students who are devoted to the mission of higher education, not to outside consultants, not to kind of like, like awards for groundskeeping, not for kind of your next layer of administrative fat cats. No, for the people who are got their like feet on the ground in higher education. And that's the story we got to get out. It's the same thing that we're seeing as K through 12 teachers are walking off the job across the country because they're saying, like, look, we are the ones who are most connected to the people who actually care about the education. Those are the people we've got to talk to. We got to talk to those students and we got to talk to their families. So that's why I've been digging so much in on this Colleen Bradley case, right? That's why I'm doing what I can to try to kind of like bring light on this thing, right? Because we've been on the front lines. I've been on the front lines and have watched a thing that I loved, higher education, public higher education, becomes something that is exhausting, becomes something that is onerous, to become something that is not what it once was. And we deserve better, and students of this Commonwealth deserve better. So, end diatribe. So anyways, check out the video with Colleen Bradley's legal team, Daniel Kearney and Ed Mazurek. and share that stuff around, folks. Right? Share that stuff around. This is Kevin Mahoney, editor and founder of Raging Chicken Press. I'll be back right after this. I'll wake up Sean in the break to bring him back, and so we'll have a couple fun things to say when we come back. Again, remember, become a member of Raging Chicken Press just by going to patreon.com/rcpress. You can become a member as little as $5 a month, help support this work. We'll be back right after this. This is Kevin Mahoney, editor and founder of Raging Chicken Press. Over the past 6 years, we've brought unapologetic, progressive, activist media to Pennsylvania and beyond. We've helped hold those in power accountable and shine a light on some amazing activist work. We've broken national stories and established a reputation as an aggressive, independent media site. As newsrooms close and traditional journalists lose their jobs, hard-hitting investigative news suffers. If we care about our democracy, we have to find new sustainable models of journalism. And frankly, no one's going to do it for us. After the Trump election, we dug in even deeper. Thanks to some longtime members, one-time donations, and a shift in other resources, we brought on more writers and started paying them. Now we're doubling down and want to expand our infrastructure and pay our writers even more. We need to invest in our media if we have a chance to resist the unprecedented assault on democracy, working families, women's rights, and our planet. History will remember the choices we make today. So take a minute to become a member of Raging Chicken Press. For as little as $5 a month, the price of a local craft beer or a cup of coffee, you will be supporting homegrown progressive journalists and media activists. Go to RagingChickenPress.org and click on the Support and Membership tab to become a member. Leave a one-time donation or learn about other ways that you can help. We don't have billionaire backers. Keeping progressive, activist media going strong depends on you. Thank you for all your help and support. Keep up the fight. Welcome back to Raging Chicken's Out the Coop podcast. It's the last call. A weird kind of last call, I have to say, this week. Neither one of us really, I don't think, has too much beer news. At least beer news that we're going to talk about.
Yeah, I got nothing.
I will say that, and Sean, you don't have to comment on this if you don't want to, but Sean, as we mentioned last week's podcast, Sean did wind up his time at Pizza Boy, so he will no longer be there. That's an understatement, but that doesn't mean that we will not talk about beer anymore. Not at all. Matter of fact, I don't think I'm going to have the time. I'm going to be up the mountains this weekend for a little bit. We have a relative who just got out of the nursing home. It's an older relative and stuff. So we're going to go spend some time with her, bring some food up to her and that kind of thing. And but it's kind of up in the kind of Ricketts Glen area. And there's some great stuff in Northeast PA that great breweries up there. A matter of fact, I had gone through in Danville, Pennsylvania. There is that's where Old Forge Brewery is. Have you ever had their stuff, Sean?
Yes, I've heard of them before.
I love their stuff. I mean, they have they came out early with the cans, right? So I can't believe I'm going to forget the name of it. They got this one IPA that I love, right? Just as if like the summertime, it's one of my go-tos. I'll have to look it up kind of while you're talking about Swingo. But so as I couldn't justify stopping because I was trying to get home in time. You know, it was like whatever. So I was after legislative assembly. But Old Forge Brewery, and there's a bunch of stuff up in the Pittston area. And I've talked about North Slope Brewing I've talked about North Slope Brewing before. They are located in Dallas, PA, which I have to kind of drive through before I go where I'm going to go. So hopefully I'll get a chance to stop there. But other than that, I've been, it's the end of my semester. So I've been just doing tons of work and learning video editing and dealing with sick kids and all that kind of stuff. So what can I say, Sean?
Yeah, it's my first weekend off in 2.5 years.
That's pretty cool. You got any big plans for the weekend?
Sit around, smoke a bunch of weed, and drink beer.
Not that Sean is condoning any kind of inappropriate activities.
There's actually a good story about that.
Is there now?
There's this a couple weeks ago, Pennsylvania Department of Health, the Medical Marijuana Control Board, they expanded the amount of the access to people. They can now have whole leaf plant from these medical marijuana dispensaries. And they had a press conference announcing this, and one of the guys like, you can't smoke it, can you? Because it's whole leaf, like. And it's a news reporter up in the newsroom, one of the people for the CBS radio, and it's a great story, like Roxbury and a couple of other people have been saying, and they're like, no, you can vaporize it. But yeah, so I'm not gonna say I condone it, but it's not bad. One of the things I'm excited for, I got my refund in the mail from the tax cuts.
Ooh,
tax break, nice. Or income tax.
So you must be like swimming in it now, right?
If like $600 is swimming in it.
Like, come on, man. That's your Trump cut, man. Thank Donald Trump, man. You better send your freaking
an extra $50. Thank you.
Yeah, exactly. Don't worry. You'll get double of that taken away next year. So once those things expire.
Yeah. 2026, I think. That's 2025 is when they all expire.
True enough.
Got some time. But I am looking forward to buying a camera lens. Yes. So what I've decided to do, I'm going to be buying a telephoto lens, a 70 to 200 millimeter lens. And basically it's a nice long lens. It's the Canon L series. I'm going to get it used offline. So it's like their pro lens. And there's a couple of really nice pictures I've been wanting to get, but I don't really have the lens capacity for it. One, I want to get up, enjoy it sometimes in the summer, get up like 5 o'clock in the morning before the sun gets up, get out on the waterfront and start taking pictures of all the herons and cranes feeding along the waterfront.
Yeah.
Which is pretty cool, like considering, we're one of the only places in the country in the state that has these birds that come here, and it's like 2 minutes outside my front door. So why not try to take that opportunity?
Yeah, totally.
And then there's this walking bridge, right? The walking bridge. The pictures of that walking bridge I've been taking all the time?
Yep.
So there's a counterpart to that bridge on the other side of City Island. And back in 2000...
Wait, there's a camera part? Is that what you said?
Counterpart.
Oh, counterpart. Sorry.
So back in like the 90s, there was a really bad ice jam on the river. Sort of what we had over here, last time, not too bad. An ice jam took out part of the walking bridge that connected City Island to Cumberland County.
Yeah.
To the West Shore. So now you just have this this bridge, the walking bridge, missing 3 or 4 parts of its middle. So you have like the trestles,
right,
and like big water weights on them, so people don't get by. So you can't really get that great of a picture of it. So what I'm planning on doing is going on the walking bridge on the bridge outside of my apartment, the Harvey Taylor, which is like the expressway. There's a bike path on there. Get on the bike path, get down to where the bridge is at, set up with the lens, because it's telephoto lens, and take a picture of the bridge, the missing of the bridge with the missing part in the middle,
right,
and then seeing the other 3 bridges right after it, like in succession.
Oh, nice.
Get a nice picture of that. Mess around with it over the summertime. I plan on getting a nice neutral density filter for my camera. For those of you who don't know, that blocks the amount of light going in. So if you ever see like pictures of a waterfront where it has like that foggy appearance, that's a long exposure shot, and that's movement from the water creating that like that nice long glassy foggy look. So I want to get some filters, and start playing around this summer with a lot of things.
Awesome, man. Awesome.
Yeah. And I won't be bartending this weekend.
You will be?
No, I won't be.
I won't be. No, he won't.
And I won't be burning any bridges.
Taking pictures of bridges, not burning bridges. Hard to burn bridges that you've already burnt. Just saying. But yeah, so I'm going to stop. So one of the things, So that beer that I was trying to remember the name of it is called Overbite IPA. It's the Overbite IPA from Old Forge Brewing Company. That's going to be my my tricky and awkward segue away from what we were just about to talk about. But so you get a chance. If you're looking for just good drinking beer, it's a great IPA. It's from Old Forge Brewing Company called Overbite IPA. Kind of some good stuff. So you can check that out. I just got to give this a shout out to the Sean. You made the internet buzz a little bit this weekend with the upcoming celebration at a local golf course.
Yes.
Is that correct?
Yes. There's this thing called so let me preface the story by saying last week there's this golf course in York County that decided to kick 5 of its black members off the course for playing too slow. Clearly racial incident. One of the members they kicked off was all 5 women. One member worked with the Department of Human Relations and Diversity within the Turnpike Commission. And another person that they tried to kick off the course and have arrested for not playing fast enough, which has never really happened at the course because the people in front of them were playing at the same pace they were.
Playing while black. Yeah,
pretty much. She was the president of the Yankister of the York County NAACP.
Oh, you picked the wrong people to be racist to.
Yes. So while this is unfolding, their Facebook page is just still up. They had a event page called Swingo de Mayo, which is celebrated on Cinco de Mayo, Mexican Independence Day. And
come and get your tacos.
You'll be getting free tacos and Mexican food afterwards.
As you go. And the best thing
totally
about that,
totally not racist though.
No. The best thing I heard about the Swingo de Mayo celebration at that golf club, Sean, no Mexicans.
I was going to say the cross burning afterwards.
All white people. You don't have to be afraid.
No, the only Mexicans there are going to be the ones cutting the grass.
Well, we got them. We got them making the tacos out back in the shed. But don't worry, they're not going to come out and disrupt your pearly white vision of Swingo de Mayo.
Yeah,
crazy.
Which I didn't think that this is actually a trend.
Yeah,
I never thought about this is actually a thing golf clubs are doing around the country. I mean, one has a little golf ball on a tee with the eyes, nose, and a fucking mustache and sombrero. Just oh my god, these are Cinco de Mayo is one of those holidays I don't celebrate.
Mm-hmm.
Simply because 1, I'm not Mexican, and 2, it's just another excuse of a drinking holiday, and I don't want to partake in that.
It's actually my my mother and father-in-law's anniversary, so that's when they got married.
Nice.
Yeah.
But it's also it's a holiday for stupid white people to show up in costumes and look stupid and do stupid things and get put on Facebook and Twitter for.
Yep. That's about right. That's about right.
And it seems like this is one of those events.
Yep. Especially when you take it place on an already proven racist golf club. Right?
Wait, you're telling me golf clubs aren't racist?
I'm sure there's one somewhere that's not, Sean. So,
I mean, yeah.
I don't know.
I mean, I think Donald Trump might have a lead on that.
He's doing great with that. Well, I do have one bit of space news for the this is just kind of cool stuff. One, I just think on NASA's Instagram account this week they released some more photos that were from the Cassini project. That was the one that was around Saturn that they just kind of crashed into the atmosphere last year because it was at the end of its life. There's some absolutely gorgeous pictures of some of Saturn's rings and stuff. Just kind of really just leaves me in awe. But I also started noticing it earlier in the week. There's been this strong push for paying attention to this Orion mission stuff. So the Orion craft is kind of a NASA project. The Orion craft is basically the next generation of moon exploration is basically here. And now they've been working on this module, the Orion module, that will eventually be manned. But they are set now. At least what they're trying to get the first launch of Orion to happen before the end of 2019. And that first mission is just basically, again, test it all out before you put people in it, right? To go out, and it's going to kind of go out and orbit the moon, and to kind of see if it works. And if that happens, then they're going to start planning out the next manned missions.
So mine the moon, not man the moon.
Well, that, believe me, this is what the staging ground is. Like I told you, like last week, like Mike Pence.
We used to have a moon.
Well, now it's going to. No, we're gonna see the lights start to happen on the moon. It's going to be crazy. I'm telling you, I would put money on the fact that we're going to see lights on the moon before I die. That's going to be my I'll put it on there. Because listen, what they want to do is that once Orion finally reaches the moon, right? And again, how soon this will happen after the 2019 mission, I'm not exactly sure. This is NASA plans to spend a significant amount of time, and I'm quoting from space.com. NASA plans to spend a significant amount of time there honing systems and creating an orbiting outpost called the Deep Space Gateway, right? And that was coming from Vanessa Wyke, I guess I would say her, the Director of Exploration, Integration, and Science Director at NASA, right? So we've got the ISS, the International Space Station, orbiting the Earth, and now it looks like we're going to have the Deep Space Gateway is going to be orbiting around the moon. And like Mike Pence said, we talked about this in the program last week, was that, no, I'm sorry, not Mike Pence. What's his face? The dude, the Commerce Secretary guy. What he said last week was that Wilbur Ross. Wilbur Ross said that the moon will be the gas station for Mars. So that's the direction, right? So we're going to clean a bunch of the space junk, right, out of our orbiting so that we can get to our deep space gateway, then land down and fuel up on the moon after we've mined this stuff out of it so that we can get to Mars. That's where we're going, folks, right? Remember, soon to be $1 trillion industry. There you have it. But cool stuff. Anything else for the good of the order, Sean?
No, that is it. I'm about to go to the gym and enjoy my weekend.
All right, it's awesome. I'm looking out the window, and I'm actually not so upset about the rain because it's not super cold, and I'm looking forward to actually spending a little time, hopefully, because it was nice mountain weather. I'm bringing my telescope with me, so I'm going to see if NASA's going to be up there working over the car. So there we go. All right, man. Well, hey, have a good week, and I guess the next time that we talk, it's going to be May. How about that? That's pretty cool. Yeah, on Monday, I have to get, we'll see how good my mouth is doing by then. I have to do some significant dental work on Monday. I'm not looking forward to that, but it should be all ready to go by next week. All right, everybody. It's been great hanging out with you today. This is Kevin Mahoney, editor and founder of Raging Chicken Press. Want to remind you, become a member of Raging Chicken for as little as $5 a month. Simply go to patreon.com/RC Press. You can sign up right there, $5 a month. Help support this work. It's Kevin Mahoney, editor and founder of Raging Chicken. We'll be back next week, folks. See ya.